Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Monday in the Riv. Another start of another week in the Riv. Let's see what happens this
Happy
week.
Earth Day.
Oh yes, Earth Day. As we destroy the Earth.
That's
Okay.
it.
I I have to show you guys. I don't know. Just talk to CJ before you get on. I just got this in from one of our viewers. I don't know if I can actually try to get this thing on here. Let me see if I can get this thing on here.
Surveillance video caught the shocking moments leading up to a stabbing in Fall River on Friday afternoon. The two men engaged in an altercation outside of the Serta bus terminal at 118 4th Street just after 3 p.m. Due to the graphic nature of the video, the actual stabbing cannot be shown, but the victim suffered at least one serious stab wound from a large knife. Arrests have been made and the victim was transported to St. Luke's Hospital in New Bedford and is reported to be in stable condition. Surveillance video caught the shocking moments leading up to a stabbing in Fall River on Friday afternoon. The two men engaged.
So there you go. Yep, you remember. People feel safe in Fall River. You go to the bus terminal, you got one guy with a spear and the other guy with a knife, and then a machete came out or something like that. And I guess just as a joke, one of our viewers, because they all have a sense of humor just like we do, they said Home Depot now has these on sale just in case you're a little worried and you want to be at Fall River. Um, Stainless steel William Wallace medieval swords with the sheath. So if you want to be like William Wallace, you can go buy it. You can go buy a medieval sword. That's all we need. People run around a city with swords, and see, that's the whole thing. It's like this is the thing that disturbs me about this administration. They, they pretend nothing happens. Yeah, 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 Jeff. Yeah. Everybody's safe here. You got people walking around with spears in there under their coats, and oh, there's Nelson. I thought you were supposed to be working. Okay, we didn't think we'd see you, but hello. Uh, but yeah, this is the thing. They try to. It's notice Fall River. It's always the excuse-making capital of the world. It's never Fall River's fault. People say Fall River's unsafe. Yeah, they're picking on Fall River. It's not that bad. There are other places worse. That's true. And there are a hell of a lot of places that are better. But it's about the people feeling safe. Do you believe most people, except those rich elitists who live in the North End, feel safe in Fall River? I don't think so. Because look at this. This isn't broad daylight. I don't know what they were fighting over, a bus pass or whatever, but I mean, this is, it's out of control. It's out of control. And with that, CJ, I'll turn it back to you.
Crime, people say crime is inevitable. I don't know how accurate that is. We know that there's always going to be some type of crime going on since the beginning of time. I mean, Cain and Abel, there was murder. Come on. We've always had crime. But when you have an administration which takes the lead on combating crime, the criminals think twice about doing it. But you look at Fall River. pull up to a red light and stop, people blow the horn at you. It's a red light. You're supposed to stop. They keep going. Police cruisers are right there, and they go right by them. And the police don't enforce it. I mean, you've got Rhode Island, which is out there stopping people from looking at their phones and texting and driving. That's a crime. But in Fall River, they're texting and driving all over the streets. Nobody does anything. When you become lax in your enforcement of the rules mean squat. And that's what this administration has lived in. Okay? I follow the law. I follow the charter. Yeah, when it's convenient. This is why our city government doesn't do anything to enforce the law. Because right from the 6th floor down, they don't follow the law. You're the leader. We're supposed to do what you want us to do and what you're supposed to do, but you don't do it. So why should we? And now you want to pay more to live in this city?
Yeah, well, CJ, let me tell you, that's not true. They say crime is inevitable. Yeah, there's going to be crime. There's always going to be crime. But you can have places that are extremely low in crime. But we're doing everything wrong in this country, not only in this city. We let felons go, no bail, and we throw white-collar criminals in jail, and we're going to prosecute people politically, but we let the criminals go. They murder people. They got gun possessions. They let them out, then they murder somebody 2 days later. Listen, I know that you can have safer cities. I know in Japan at one time, and I can't speak to it now because it's been a very long time, you could walk down the street of Tokyo with money hanging out of your wallet. Nobody'd steal anything because in Japan, if you go to jail, it's not a nice place to be. And they have an extremely harsh penal code, as they do in Europe. I was only in Western Europe, but we couldn't go to Eastern Europe. When I was there, there was an iron curtain, and I was in the military, and we couldn't get anywhere near that thing, and those countries. But I saw most of Western Europe. Those cities were fairly safe in comparison to the United States, and even islands. I remember going to the Dominican Republic, and the guide we had, when we went by the prison, he said, "Yeah, that's the prison." He said, "Nobody wants to go there because most of the time you don't get out alive. Somebody will kill you, or you'll get a life sentence or something like that." This is BS that you can't control crime. All the bleeding heart liberals want to tell you that we've got to coddle these criminals and let them go. It's ridiculous. You get people with 20 or 30 or 40 charges against them that are out on the street. How many murders have we seen recently with people who were arrested on gun possession charges a month before or less than a month before, and numerous times carrying a gun, and they're felons, and then they murder somebody. We are our own victims. And then I'll get back to another thing I got. Somebody, I guess, Fall River Reporter, somebody sent me this opinion letter about water, sewer, don't allow the new diamond. People were speaking out against it. Noticed.
I read that over the weekend. I read that over the weekend from the original publisher.
Yeah, and I noticed some of our regulars, Jeff and Nelson, and some of our people commented. Most of them were negative, but see, this is the problem. There's always one, and this is the elitist attitude. I just have to read this because this shows the mindset of the guys like Mike Bloomberg when he said, "You can't afford an electric car, take a bus. You can't afford to eat meat, eat beans, and if you can't afford your vet bill, put your dog down." because they don't care about rhythm. So this guy is obviously either he's full of bull and he's not real, although there is a picture. Everyone whines and complains that the city is so awful, yet funding cities comes with things like permits and taxes. Raise everything and let the city thrive. Do you realize how delusionary this is? Now here's an elitist that's probably got money that's worrying about the city thriving. He doesn't understand that cities and towns and governments were created for the people to thrive, not the city. Here's another one. You don't like it, move out. Go jump in the Taunton River. Let us raise taxes forever, even if we're pissing the money in a hole. Nobody here has ever said that taxes and permits aren't necessary, just as a water bill isn't necessary. But when we're spending so much money that we can't spend till 2033 and we're still spending money, we should be rebelling against giving them any money. And all the people who are against that override or 2.5 override or debt exclusion or whatever they euphemistic thing they want to tell, they're right. But I'm glad somebody like this posts, because it shows their attitude. It's the let them eat cake mentality. Shut up, you're starving to death, just stay out of my line of sight. We'll make sure you don't live in our neighborhoods. The Martha's Vineyard attitude. We love it. We love illegals till they get to Martha's Vineyard. Then it's, NIMBY, not in my backyard. Get them the hell out of here. We could have half of Guatemala pitching tents on the Obama estate, Martha's Vineyard. How long do you think anybody would last that set foot on the Obama complex? These people don't care. This is the world they want. They want rich and poor. And they don't care how poor you get. You know, there's an old saying, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. Well, what guys like this want is they want 12-year-olds chained to the machines in factories, working 14-hour days for 3 cents an hour. That's what they want. That's why they say, bring the illegals in, they work for nothing. Our vegetables are going to rot in the ground. Middle class, what are you, nuts? You can't have a middle class. You can't just work hard and have enough money to have a decent life. Screw your decent life. It should be only the rich and the nauseous and the serfs. This is the world that they want. I'm glad this guy put it in print. Let the city thrive. Like the city is a sentient being. The city. We're working for the city. You're not even a capitalist. You're a freaking communist. We're working for the state. We're working for the city. That's communism. They created this country to have people be able to forge the kind of life they wanted. If they wanted to work hard, they should have a decent life. And for somebody to say, in other words, get out of town, but that's their attitude. That's their attitude. Just like our council. Keep piling on the bills. I got my money. I don't give a shit about what happens to the regular people for it. I don't even know that the majority of people in Fall River are making 30 grand. That's the median income, which is about less than half of the state income. They don't care. And this is it. This is great that these forums are there because you can see it. But think critically. Look at what he said. Let the city thrive. No, it means let him thrive. Let all the rich people get richer, and you can get poorer and tough shit. And with that, CJ, back.
I'm actually going to read the letter that generated that Let the City Thrive. The letter was written by M.R. Napier. I believe that's Michael Napier of Fall River. And here's what he had to say. In the interest of plain common sense, oh my God, plain common sense, please, capital letters, do not allow the mayor to put the diamond funding issue on the upcoming ballot. Though I'm confident that he will produce a dog and pony show with all his department heads standing beside him in a false sense of unity, you can remember on the Durfee exclusion. Remember, he's referencing the Durfee exclusion vote in that thing. The veiled threat that the various departments will have to make serious cuts in service if this measure isn't allowed on the ballot, notwithstanding poor management of current and past resources, does not qualify as an emergency. Anyone with a functioning brain should be able to see that a 61% approval rate in that debt exclusion consisted of a city union employees and their families concerned that there would be massive layoffs. Whoever can blame them? This is likely to happen again. We've already been advised of the 24% hike in water and sewer bills for the next fiscal year. While just about every single fee charged for various permits has been adjusted, let's not forget that we have a chief executive in Boston, backed by a spineless legislature, already sending along their blessings to allow the cities and towns to raise excise taxes along with other supposedly governed by the Prop 2.5 law above the mandated rates. I really believe that it's incumbent on all of you to advocate for the actual taxpayer in our great city and stop this tax and spend insanity. I've stated before that a thorough forensic audit of every city department should be completed so as to know just where we stand. I will close by saying that when His Honor is finally voted out of the 6th floor, I expect that he'll be as far away from Fall River as he can get, as even he won't be able to afford to live here. Sincerely, M.R. Napier, Fall River. And that is what generated the Let Fall River Thrive comment. This is what happens. Okay? This is a man who has some common sense, but now he's being called negative by one or two people. Because when you present the facts are negative. The facts are always negative. No, the facts are facts. I've said this before. The facts are facts. They're not negative. They're not positive. They're facts. And that's the thing that we have to understand. When you present these arguments, we know that when we present them to the city council, it's falling on deaf ears. Because people like Laura Sampson, when you're doing citizens input, do this. That way she can't hear you. Because she doesn't care. She has her questions already set for every issue coming up. Because those were given to her by Paul Coogan. This is what you will ask. This is how you will ask it. And this is what you will do. Let me keep pulling your strings. That's what happens.
Okay,
And
here we go,
need to be able to
CJ.
defend it. What was that, Chip?
No, I'm just saying. Now they're gonna throw you guys, the negative stuff. So while you were reading that very, very well written letter that articulated real issues. Listen, but again, we come upon the issue of affordability for people. That's the thing. This is supposed to be a capitalistic society where you have to charge wherever you live what the market will bear. Well, this market won't bear it. So I just did a quick on my phone while you were doing it. I just Googled, and as I always do, I use the United States Census Bureau statistics. There are varying to a degree, but I always use the U.S. Census Bureau. That way my numbers are always correct. So this is the latest, right? It's on my phone right now. Okay, the average per capita income, median per capita income in Fall River is $30,591. Remember that, 30,000. The state average median per capita income is 87,812. 87,000. Do your math. We'll round up a little bit. 3 times what people make in Fall River. 3 times. 42% of the people in Massachusetts, individually, not household income, make more than $100,000 a year. 42%. That's in the statistics too. These are not my numbers. These are numbers that are gotten by the United States Census Bureau. You can look up the numbers. Yet our council acts like we're one of these towns. This is why 1,100 people a month are leaving Massachusetts. It's not the 42% that are making 100 grand. It's the rich elitists that live in these towns where they have $170,000 household incomes, $200,000 incomes. Yeah, they can afford water bills, and ironically enough, they're paying less than we are. Places like Wellesley are paying less than we are. What's the moral of this story? They don't give a shit about us. Like CJ just said, the council doesn't care. You think the council knows anything about these numbers? They don't have any freaking idea what the average person of Fall River is facing now. I just got another text. We get this stuff all the time. They're selling townhouse condos right in the middle of the neighborhood where they had 3 shootings in a month. 600,000. I don't see a lot of people buying those unless they bought the swords from Home Depot. But I mean, these people, they live in their own world. Get your head right. Understand something. Like CJ said, and as was said in that letter, self-interest groups are running this city. They show up at the polls. The majority of the 14,000 people that show up at these elections are people who have an interest. They want to continue to get the big pay raises. They want to continue not to have to control their spending because they're living large. And the only way to change that is for the other 40,000 people who are dealing with these numbers to show up. Get off your butts and get to the polls. This is only our city if we vote. If you let these people control it, there's always more than 50% of them who they got a job, their relatives got a job, or everybody in their family's got a job. And they're getting these pay raises. Just think about that. $30,591. That's today's figure that I got, the U.S. Census Bureau. 30,000. Calgon gave out a couple of pay raises that are 2/3 that amount. Nearly 66% of that amount. $19,000 is pretty close to 20. So 20, 30 is only 10 grand left. So 2/3. You think they care about these people? Remember, that's immediate. That doesn't mean that most people are making 30. That means some people are making 40 and some people are making 18. Some people are making less than 18. This is our community. And the city is not supposed to thrive. We are supposed to have some compassion and some understanding that a city and a government is elected to ensure that the people in that community have a reasonable quality of life. And our government is not doing that. And with that back to
There's always a problem when you give anything to the government. We've said this before. Give the government the Sahara, and in 5 years, they'll run out of sand. Well, that's what's happened here in Fall River. I said in the weekend flush about the water and sewer rates. I had a conversation Friday after our show with Paul Ferland, Director of Community Utilities, Public Utilities, whatever you want to call it. And we discussed the rates, why they're at the point that they're at, why a 24% increase is required with a 5% consistent increase for the next 5 years. And he made sense. That's the sad part about it. I don't know if it's just the propaganda was there, or if it just made absolute sense, but we have for years, in order to keep the water rates down, been using one-time money, stabilization money. And many moons ago, Sean Kadim said, we are creating structural deficits in our budgets. He knew that. Cliff Ponte said at the past city council meeting that he doesn't support using one-time money because it creates structural deficits. But, that was the thing, but why couldn't we find one-time money this time to offset the water and sewer rate increases? And Paul Ferland said it clearly. You've spent it all. Money is finite. Although the government thinks that the taxpayer is an ATM machine and they can just keep inserting the card and getting more and more money, that's not the actual case. And we've run out of money. At least in that department.
Yeah, but CJ, it's all departments. You see, what he said makes sense if you look at it by looking at the tree.
Right.
Without looking at the forest.
Exactly.
How did we get there? Yeah, they didn't raise the rates, but they also kept spending.
That's right.
You see, maybe they wouldn't have had to raise the rates if they controlled their spending. See, you're right. Milton Friedman said you give them the Sahara Desert, they'll run out of sand in 5 years. But the problem with the government is, you give them the Sahara Desert, they'll spend it all in 5 years. There'll be no sand left in the Sahara Desert, and then they'll start buying the Kalahari Desert.
That's it.
They'll find another desert to buy with your money.
That's right.
To run out of that desert sand. Because they don't stop spending. Calgon has spent more money than any other mayor, I think, in history. With the pay raises, the number of jobs he's created, the $88 million in federal fund he blew. These people never stop spending. It's not about that single department. Yeah, the council is like they're bipolar. Oh, we can't impose these giant these giant increases on the taxpayer, but then they approve all kinds of new jobs, all kinds of pay increases, all kinds of tax increases, and all kinds of fee increases on the other end. They're bipolar. You can't do it this way. Listen, if they came to me and said, listen, Paul Calgon has streamlined government. He didn't create 400 jobs. He cut 400 jobs. And we're still broke. I'd say, well, okay, maybe these things are justified. But you can't tell me they're justified. They just said they can't borrow any money till 2033, but they're still spending money. They're still creating new positions. How are they going to pay for them? I'll tell you how. They're going to increase your water rates. They're going to get, the state's going to give them the permission to increase your excise taxes, put taxes on rooms of hotels that we can't even rent. We got one hotel in the city, and that thing was never had virtually any occupancy. There was only a few cars up there, and I'm always in the area up there because I drive up there to go to Shores, and go to the bank and stuff like that. I drive by there all the time. Now they got illegals in there. So now they're renting the rooms. Government doesn't mind paying the extra money for illegals, but I mean, this is the problem. They don't stop spending. They like to isolate the thing and try to convince you. And like I said, he made a plausible argument. You're right. You know, there should be an incremental increase in certain things, but then maybe not in everything. There was a time, and we know this is possible, because we lived in a time, and CJ and I can remember, where taxes didn't go up every year, where fees didn't go up every year.
Especially in an election year.
That's right. And we know that what their con is, oh, we're going to cut, we're going to cut, we're going to cut. And that's the problem. Even when they cut, they don't cut their friends' jobs. Coogan's going to threaten to cut police and fire. We know that, especially fire. You think he's going to undo his reorganization that created four supervisors where there used to be one? 3 other people got $100,000 a year jobs and less people to supervise. No. He's going to threaten the people of Fall River with cuts. So then you have a choice. There was a time, and I was talking about it to a firefighter that was on the job at the time, when the firefighters were given that, they were going to lay people off, or you forego a pay raise, and the firefighter said no. Lay the people off. You know why? Because if you make that threat good, you'll threaten that every year, and we'll never get a pay raise, and we'll be working for minimum wage. At least when I come back to the job, we'll have a livable wage, and everybody should get a fair wage. But the reality is going to threaten cuts. It's up to the people of Fall River to say, okay, you want to cut? The last place you should cut is public safety, not the first place. And if you threaten that, everybody on that council that supports that initiative will be gone in the next election. That's the bottom line. They will do whatever they can get away with, and the people who let them get away with it are the people who do not show up at the polls. With that, CJ, back to you.
Scott Donnelly said it very clearly. We need term limits, and you and I both were not big advocates of term limits initially. But our city government has shown not only the dire need for it, the absolute requirement that we have term limits. Our government doesn't represent the people anymore. Our elected officials represent the special interest groups, except for one person. And that one person stands alone for you. And she gets no gratitude for it. None. You know the type of gratitude you get when Laura is 14th or 15th on the list after the primary, but she makes it to the top 9 in the general election. That's the problem. Why? Because Paul Coogan put his arm around her and said, well, I want her because she's stupid and she'll only do what I say. That's what happens. Okay? And I can say that if I want. So can you. That's the way it is.
You're right, CJ. I was never in favor of term limits. Now I'm in favor of 6-month terms. 6 months. 6 months you don't do your job, you're gone.
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly.
You're gone. Throw them out like Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain said. Change them like dirty diapers, and that's what you got to do. But listen, look, and like I said, we're realistic. We use real figures. If it's our opinion, we'll say it's our opinion. But let me tell you something. We never blame these people. We're not negative. We're realists. We're pragmatists. I've never blamed them for doing this is what they do. They're political hooers.
That's right.
That's what they are. They live in a world where you support the right guy for mayor, you prosper. You get the wrong guy, you're in a toilet till somebody you support gets in. This is the way they live. This is the way they get their jobs. This is the way they get their pay raises. They don't take a test for it. They didn't have to go to nursing school and get a degree and then take an exam to get your license and then go get a job that pays well because you've got a skill. They didn't have
And don't
to take
forget, you got to go to school every year. You got to
That's
go to
right.
school
You got to
every
do
year to keep that
CEUs.
license.
Yeah, they didn't take a test to get on a department they're in.
That's
They
right.
didn't have to take promotional exams and compete against everybody else in that department. No, they get their jobs by kissing ass, and that's the way they live. And the problem is that there's always that's. I don't expect them to be anything else. But what we should expect is the people to be outraged by this and to get their ass to the polls and throw people out who abuse this process. And with that, I'm done.
Jeff, I got to say something. You're not the only one that did that. A lot of people voted for Paul because they thought he would do well. Paul is the master of bullshit. The master of bullshit. There's no question about it. And you weren't the only one that was deceived. But how do you know a politician is lying? His lips are moving. His lips are moving, therefore they're lying. You've got to be careful of who you vote for. You've got to look and say very clearly. You got to say very clearly, I want somebody who's going to work for us. Nobody liked the crooked mayor. Not because it was Jazel. They just didn't like the criminal acts. Because Jazel was actually a good mayor. If it wasn't for the crime, he was a good mayor. And he brought Fall River forward. And he brought the people forward with him. He was a Buddy Cianci type mayor. One for you, one for me. One for you, one for me. You want to build something? Go talk to the unions. That's how he did it. And he made sure everybody was working and everybody was prosperous. That's what we need for a mayor for Fall River. We need to make sure that we get a mayor who works for the people and make sure the people are working and the people are prosperous. I want to thank you all for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great day.